Hello, I'm Kurt Lidke, Executive Director of Klamath Film, and you just watched Father Figure, a film about a priest's moral dilemma. With us is the film's director, Moriah Doepken. Moriah, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, welcome back. You had a film in last year's festival as well. You wrote and directed this film. So where did the concept for the film's story come from?
A few years ago, I just kind of had this image of a corrupt priest in a confessional, and I thought that would be interesting to kind of play with. So it's not quite the same thing. It's a priest with a moral dilemma in a confessional, but it's done from that. And this was my senior thesis film for Southern Oregon University, so I worked on it all through last year and then finished it up.
Terrific. Well, the actor who portrays the priest, Tyler, right? He does an extraordinary job in this film of detailing the moral dilemma of a Catholic priest. It's sometimes hard to forget that clergy aren't always clergy from the day they're born. They have a life before they join the church. In fact, I even have a cousin who became a pastor, then left the church for years, and now became a pastor again. So this sort of thing can happen. Had you worked with this actor before, and what did you like about his performance?
I had not worked with him before. We kind of had this big casting call at the school for like senior projects, people who were looking for actors. So we hooked up with the theater department, and he auditioned and ran a monologue, and I thought it was exactly the same kind of tone that I was looking for. And I had him read, and I absolutely loved it. And I really kind of let him. I tried not to give him too much direction. I wanted him to kind of feel it out for himself, and I think he just absolutely nailed it.
It's a really hard thing to do, to basically carry a film by yourself. There are some supporting cast, but largely the film is him having a conversation with himself. And that can be really difficult to find the right person who can carry that. But I thought Tyler did a fantastic job in this and in being able to present that. So you largely left it up to him then? You didn't give a whole lot of direction, just said, do it as you will?
Yeah, that's kind of. I did a table read with all of the actors like a week or two before filming, and they were all asking for input and stuff into their characters, and I really wanted them all to just feel it out for themselves because I really like collaboration. I don't want it to be just my way. So if they have an idea of adding a line or emphasizing one single part of a line, then I'm all for that. And so yeah, they all kind of did their own thing and turned out, I think, pretty well.
Yeah. So last year you had a documentary that you provided for our festival, Escaping the Communist Paradise. Was this your first foray into narrative shorts?
I had done a couple of smaller narrative short films, but this was kind of the first bigger one that I had done. As my senior thesis, I had, I wrote, directed it, did pretty much, I edited all of it. So all of like the pre-production, production, and post-production was pretty much me with some people supporting. So it was definitely the biggest project I've done to date so far.
Did you grow up in the Catholic Church to know some of the background, or did you have to research a lot of it to kind of delve out the character and the story arc?
So my father's actually a pastor, not Catholic, obviously, because I'm here, but so I was always interested in kind of the influence that religion has on a community and just the structure of religion I find very interesting. And so I went with that, and I knew obviously like with Catholic priests, like you're not supposed to have kids. So that's kind of like where I went. But, like I know Catholic, like people who attend Catholic church, and some of my dad's pastoral friends are Catholic priests. So I had some good resources to kind of make sure terminology was right and I wasn't too far off base.
Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of attention paid in the last few years with the Catholic Church for sexual transgressions. This film takes a different slant on that because it's not about abuse. It's about the life before they join the clergy, which is an interesting take because that's something that I'm sure has come up with people who have joined the clergy, but isn't necessarily something that's talked about. The stories we hear about on national news are the various scandals and whatnot. I'm sure, though, many Catholic clergy have had to address this about their lives before they joined the church. So what made you want to tell this side of the coin, because it's not a story of abuse like what we often hear about, and there have been films made about that. It's about accepting your life before you become clergy, right?
Yeah, I think, not just in Catholic Church, in a lot of churches, there's a lot of structural problems and things that get swept under the rug. And so I kind of wanted to look at that as well, but obviously not go as kind of intense as some other stories. So that's kind of why I went with this version. But yeah.
So this was a senior thesis project through the Southern Oregon University program. You've now graduated, now down in LA. Are you pursuing filmmaking full time?
I was recently accepted to Chapman University, so in just a couple of weeks, I will be starting their MFA program with an emphasis in directing. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Terrific. Well, good luck on the next step then. We've enjoyed the films that we've seen from you so far. You shot this for your senior year, so I'm curious, because we know how difficult it is just to make a film in general, much less having to make a film during a global pandemic. This film seems well suited, though, for being able to film with a minimal cast and crew, because largely it is just Tyler on camera for most of it. Did that come into play in terms of the concept for it, of how can I make a film that will have absolute minimal cast and crew amidst all of the ongoing on-set restrictions and issues that COVID presents?
Well, I actually filmed the majority of this right before the lockdown started. Okay. The opening scene of my film, where there's a bunch of people in the pews, that was the last Sunday that churches were open. And then his monologue scene at the end was after kind of lockdown had started, and thankfully that was, very, very minimal cast and crew there. It was just him and a handful of people running lights and sound and camera. But then post-production, it did actually affect it a little bit, just because I couldn't work with my sound editor very closely, and all cuts and opinions that I wanted from professors and such, I just email back and forth instead of sitting down with them and taking notes. So post-production was a little bit lonelier, but yeah, I got very lucky with really the last possible week I could be filming. I was, so yeah.
The timing on that is great, because how naive we were, thinking, no, the shutdown will just be like a week or two and then everything will be back to normal again. So I guess it's fortuitous that you decided, screw it, we'll go ahead and film these scenes anyway. But was there a thought like, oh, well, let's just shut it down for a month and we'll come back in like April and everything will be fine, and then we can just finish up the project then?
Yeah, I considered it, but I had already those were the dates of filming that I already had. And I was like, I just want to get filming done so I can start editing. But I know some of my friends who were in the middle of filming projects for their senior films had to totally drastically change their projects, because some weren't going to film until after spring break, which obviously that's when shutdown happened. So they were never able to film their films at all. So yeah, I was very lucky, but especially when I kind of started to see things were more serious, I was like, let's just get it done now, because who knows when I can finish it.
Yeah. So it may not have been 100% how you ideally initially viewed it because of those restrictions in the course of the production. But overall, are you happy with this project? And do you have a favorite shot or scene or moment in it that really stands out to you?
It had some technical difficulties with like camera stuff, so there are some camera things that aren't exactly how I would have liked. We had a camera break and had to learn a totally new camera within a week. But yeah. But I am very pleased with how it turned out, and it helped get me into grad school, so it obviously is good enough for that. I think my favorite scene is just the end scene with his monologue. I'm very pleased with how that turned out, kind of to finish it off. So probably that. Okay.
So it's a very serious film in its approach, that is addressing a very serious issue. But even with the minimal crew, there's always bloopers or, you know, bad takes or whoops, the mic's in the shot, and anything stand out from the course of production that you can look back on and chuckle about now?
There were definitely a good number of bloopers, which were fun to revisit. I actually made like a little blooper reel and gave it to the cast and crew once it was done. I think my favorite might be I was actually running the camera for that final scene, the monologue scene, and I had a little Steadicam like on me, and there were a handful of times where the camera just had a mind of its own and just would pan away or just tip up. So I was like, okay, well, stop there, I guess, or I'd move too far in one direction, something like that.
It's a very long monologue that Tyler has. Did he do it all in one continuous take, or did you cut it up? Did you teleprompt it? Because it's a lot of dialogue to take in.
Yeah, we just kind of did single takes. We did like 5 of them, 6 of them, something like that. And then I did it from different angles and then cut them together to make it. Yeah.
Okay, great. What do you hope that people take away from watching Father Figure?
I think more than anything is just about moral dilemmas and understanding how I think most people would say that he made the right decision, but I don't think people would get too upset because they would understand if he had taken the other option of being silent. And so I don't think necessarily things are black and white because, there's a lot of people that will think about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Moriah. Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical issues on our side, but thank you so much for this film and for joining us. Father Figure will be screened on Sunday, September 19th at 2 p.m. in our Southern Shorts category and available all week on demand. Congratulations on moving on to the next step in your career, and this was a wonderful senior thesis film. So congrats on being picked for the second year in a row for the Klamath Independent Film Festival. We look forward to seeing what is next for you.
Thanks.